Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of Exponential Potential. And this month in July, we are talking about hot mess. See now, Alex, you should be delighted because I'm segueing straight through to you.
There we go.
I am joined by Alex McLintock, and we'll get to the introduction. I mean, kudos anyway. You're looking mighty fine today. I don't know if you'd go with hot mess, but the intention.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. Any kind of mess, if it's going to be a mess, a hot mess is probably one of the better ones, isn't it? But in the context of today, maybe not.
That's random. So all this month we are talking about menopause. Is that breathing? Oh, menopause. And we have been covering many different aspects of menopause, in terms of the symptoms. We've got some great guests coming later this month. But this is quite a special interview. It's a very different perspective, as you may have spotted. So, Alex, I'm delighted to have you here.
Thank
And
you for the invite.
yeah, before we get into the topic, I just want to share how we met, as it were. So earlier in the year, if you joined the live shows from the expo, you'll remember that we met Lucas, who is a representative of Andy's Man Club. And Andy's Man Club is a really important organisation, really important. So before we get into the topic, tell us about Andy's Man Club.
So Andy's Man Club is probably the biggest peer support group for men in the UK. We're almost at 200 support groups now that meet every Monday night, 7 till 9. 4,500 men walk through the door each week, and just providing a safe space for guys to come together and talk about the weeks, get stuff off their chest, and sit in a room with like-minded men and have a cup of tea or a coffee and a biscuit and a chat. So we started in 2016 after the unfortunate death by suicide of a young man, Andy Roberts, in Halifax, and obviously devastated his friends and family, and his brother-in-law, Luke Ambler, who was a professional rugby league player at the time and doing a lot in the lifestyle coaching space and mental health awareness. They spoke to Elaine, Andy's mum, and they came up with the concept of a coffee group for men just to provide that safe space so guys could come and talk about some of the stuff they're going through. So those temporary problems that they were experiencing didn't lead to a permanent solution like suicide. So, and it was primarily to stop the families going through the devastation that's left behind by suicide. So that one group in Halifax with 9 men walking through the first night has just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I got involved in 2017 as a project for work when I worked with the Scottish Prison Service. I brought it up to Scotland, and it just keeps growing, and it's just blown me away, the actual growth in the organisation. We've now got nearly 30 staff. And as I say, 200 groups, 4,500 men, and it's just frightening to think it's come from that one group of 9 men sitting in Halifax.
And the ripple effect is absolutely enormous. And whilst it's come from a tale of suicide, it's not just around suicide. I imagine the topics that you guys cover are really far-ranging.
Yeah, so we're home to any man, and we say that all the time. You don't have to have mental health issues. You don't have to suffer from suicidal thoughts. You might just be struggling. You just might be lonely, isolated. You maybe just want to get out of the house, escape the wife and kids for a couple of hours because the wife's going through menopause. We're all different, aren't we? We go for a different reasons. So it's just a safe space where guys can come and talk about absolutely anything and everything that they're experienced, to get a wee bit of help and support from other guys that have been there. So if I share something that I'm struggling with, chances are someone else in the room's gone through it. And it's that, when you're going through something like that, if it is mental health crisis or something, you genuinely think you're on your own. But then when you walk into a room and there's 30 odd guys all experience similar things to you, it's a massive relief to know that someone's got your back.
Yeah, and Lucas, we only had a short conversation, but he shared that it's an absolute lie that men don't talk.
100%.
First off, we don't always give enough space for you guys to talk. But second off, it's just the right environment.
Yeah, that's it. And I think we've created that safe space that guys are comfortable to talk about stuff that we're not used to talking about. And I think that's different from being able to talk. Guys do talk, and sometimes we can reverse some women and about the things we talk about, but we don't talk about what we need to talk about. Yeah. So I experienced my first Andy's Man Club meeting with a guy that I've known for 30 odd years, classed as one of my best mates, and worked with him for a long time. But when I shared my story of a failed suicide attempt and mental health struggles, he was gobsmacked because I'd never ever told him. So we don't talk about the stuff that's going up there. We'll just talk about the weekend, the football, what did you watch, blah, blah, blah. But we don't talk about the real stuff that we should. And that's where Andy's Man Clubs is challenging those stigmas to normalise the conversation around these things, because we do talk given the right environment, as you said.
And stigma and overcoming stigma is really important to your overall mission. I mean, we've mentioned the word suicide many times now, and for many people, the concept of suicide is
taboo.
Still taboo. But there are other aspects. I'm just going to softly pull us into the stigma that we're talking about today, that we introduced, which is the stigma about menopause and men talking about women's things. It's like,
like massive stigmas, and you start talking about it, and people just go, "No, talk about that." So for me, it's getting easier because I'm getting used to talking about it, and I've spoke to a lot of people about it. So, but I know when I bring up certain subjects, people just go, "Oh no, here he goes." Do you know what I mean? Because they're not used to talking about it. It's uncomfortable, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And let's start tackling that. And one of my favorite stories that you've shared is around the stigma that you face being a man going to a menopause clinic for women.
So I've been attending the menopause cafes, which actually started in my local town a few years ago by Rachel, and it's now a worldwide movement. And the first time I walked through the door, it was like, do you know, this is a menopause cafe? I'm going, yeah, that's why I'm here. And even the facilitators were gobsmacked because they didn't know what to do, because it never happened before. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I think obviously in the menopause cafe, there's bound to have been men attending, but certainly for Perth, it was our first, and it was a weird experience. But a lot of the women wanted to come and speak to me to get a male perspective as well. And I think I ended up talking more than my wife Amanda did when we went to the first one. There have been a couple of times. And now the face on social media for the local Perth Menopause Cafe, which is cool, because if it encourages another man to walk through the door, then it served its purpose, isn't it?
So tell me why you're so open to talking about menopause. Why are you passionate about this?
So I've done a lot of self-growth and research into different things over the years, coming through Andy's Man Club and just listening to other people and going away and reading books that people talked about. And a big thing for me is podcasts. I love coming on podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. I record my own podcast as well. And I remember that, like we spoke previously, there was a theme to a couple of episodes that I was watching, and they weren't talking in depth about menopause, but they were mentioning it and how it was affecting their home life and stuff like that. And it got me thinking. So I just went on to Spotify and just searched men and menopause and came across the menopause coach, Adele, who I've met a few times now, and she lives just down the road from me. And she was doing an episode with her husband and just talking about how it was affecting their home life and how he was feeling going through menopause. And I could just relate to so much of what he was talking about. And I'm thinking, that's me, 100%, that is me. And I was on my way to a meeting in Bradford for Andy's Man Club on a Monday night. It was peeing with rain. And I walked in and I was telling the guys in the meeting what I was listening to and how I was in tears on the way to the meeting, because I can totally relate to what this guy's going through with his missus. And I was talking about some of the things that I could relate to, and they're all just sitting going like, yeah, I agree, big man, that's what my life's like, that's what my life's like. I'm thinking, well, why is no one talking about it? So that's when the brain kicks in. I start doing more and more and more, listening to more podcasts, get books. And on the way home to my hotel, I phoned Amanda, my wife, and says, look, you need to listen to this podcast before I come up the road, because we need to talk about this, because I think this is us. And that was probably after about 18 months of different things happening and just saying the wrong thing. You know what I mean? Being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or not doing something that I thought I should have done or didn't do or did do and it wasn't right, and hot flushes for the wife, and just loads of different things that you just knock off as that's just happening. Do you know what I mean? Because she's too young. Do you know what I mean? Again, that misconception that you've got to be an old woman to go through menopause is bull. So I started to be the one that educated Amanda. And it took a long time to get through her, and it took a long time for us to find the right doctor. Do you know what I mean? She'd spoken to her GP a couple of times, and this is where the receptionist being nosy phoning up, what you want to speak to the doctor for? Well, blah, blah, blah. So she spoke to the receptionist and she went, I know exactly who you need to speak to. Because prior to that, they were putting everyone down to, she was having thyroid issues. She was slightly overweight. She's asthmatic, all these different things. Trying to put her on antidepressants and all these things that they're all similar symptoms to menopause. And then it was like, no, right, and once she spoke to this doctor, it was just like a weight off her shoulders. And she just like, right, at least I know what I'm dealing with now. So she's tried a few things. She's tried the patches and stuff like that, and they initially worked, but then they stopped working. So we're trying different things now. And like we said before, it's about lifestyle choices. Excuse me, it's about finding that balance and what you can do to look after each other. And it's whether it's healthy eating and exercise, drinking water, taking supplements. So we've got our things like vitamin D and magnesium and black cohosh and all these things that we're trying to see what can work for her. And it seems to be getting better. There's still some days that you just go, oh, right, okay, I think I'll go out. Do you know what I mean?
It's a Monday, I'll go to a club.
Yeah, but I understand that now. Do you know what I mean? Was
Yeah.
before I didn't understand that. And I think if I look back at my previous marriage, and I think she was perimenopausal when everything kicked off and we ended up separating. And I just thought it was me. I just thought I was a dick. She didn't want to be with me, blah, blah, blah. We just weren't getting on. But to now look back and reflect, you could see similarities between what Amanda was going through and what my first wife was going through. So it's a massive issue. And the more you look into it, the more you see. And going to things like Menopause Cafe is mind altering to me, because then I can hear other people. And some of the women don't want to talk to you because they're just like, why are you here? And I get that. And I even went to an event in Manchester with Adele that she put on, and I was the only guy in the room. And that was slightly off-putting because there's like 50 odd women there and they're all talking about vulvas and dryness and this and that and lubes and handing out gift packs, and I'm like, I'll give a couple of them, I'll take them up the road. I was handing out pals and I give that to the wife, but what's in it? I'm going, I have no idea, I don't even want to look. Just take it. I got, where'd you get it? A menopause workshop. Oh, and then they're coming back, I can't believe you gave me that big man. Do you know what was in it? I was like, no, not interested. As long as you enjoyed it, that's fine. So it's certainly opened us up, and I talk to my mates about it now, and I talk about it all the time to guys at work and at Andy's Man Club. And like, obviously you speaking to Lucas, I'll put you on to Alex because he knows about menopause. Do you know what I mean? So let's become and do stuff like this, and hopefully open up to more men to sit there, and whether it's buying a book, reading a book, listening to a podcast, just go out and educate yourself, because you can help your women in your lives, because we're going through it. Do you know what I mean? I keep saying that myself and Amanda are going through menopause. She's the one with the symptoms, but I've got to help her deal with that and look after her.
Yeah, definitely. Or you're on the tail end of it. You know,
Hopefully.
but it's such a progressive thing. It can go on for years, especially with perimenopause, and there's very subtle shifts that go on, and you become a bit irritable. And I can completely relate to Amanda's story about the doctor saying that it's stress, or that it's particularly bad PMT, or it's just like, oh, no, it doesn't feel like that. So you can go for years and there's a shift in the dynamic of your relationship and you don't really know what it is.
Yeah, and it can be hard. So, like, obviously, if we look back, I think she started to have symptoms like after or during COVID, like lockdown. But I was also suffering for long COVID, so I was off my work for 8 months, and I was suffering for symptoms and like loss of libido and stuff like that, and energy and all these things. And there was a natural decline in our relationship. Do you know what I mean? And it just felt, I don't know, I can't even put it in words. It was just like it wasn't the same. And I think if I had a better understanding then that it wasn't just me, it was everyone else was going on, I think it would have certainly helped us in it. And now we have that understanding, we can talk about it. Do you know what I mean? We've gone away, and as much as I didn't know what were in the bags, I know what's in the bags now. Do you know what I mean? Because we've had to use some of the lubes and stuff like that, so it helps, and that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? It's obviously after experiencing some of the stuff that we've experienced, and like you say, it can go on for a long time. I reckon it's just over 2 years now that we've been dealing with perimenopause. And that's some of the things that blew my mind when I actually started researching and listening to other people. Menopause only lasts for one day. And that just blew my mind. So I mean, it's because like
What?
you've got peri-menopause, which is
Yeah.
everything up, and then the menopause actually only lasts 1 day, so it's 365 days plus one after your last period, you're in menopause, and then after that day, you're postmenopausal. So it only lasts 1 day. So, but it could last like 3 or 4 years to the build up to that 1 day, and that just fried my nut. It really did. And obviously, just fried your nut as well because you didn't know that.
I didn't know that. Which is
There you
bonkers. It's
go.
like, yeah, that's
Every day's a
just
school day.
crazy. Well, and often, I mean, I look back at my son and my husband. They would have known before me, or they might have had a kind of, they might have seen subtle shifts. Whereas, particularly if you're a career woman like I am, you're like push, 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 push. Yeah, it's just stress. Yeah, it's just stress. But he noticed something was different. He didn't have the conversation with me that
It's
you were
difficult.
having, but
No, it's
yeah,
difficult. And it
yeah.
took me a long time to do that. And bear in mind, I'd done it for about 400 miles away on the phone. So I didn't do it face to face. I wasn't that daft. But it's like, no, but like your son and your husband probably noticed, and they would have gone, "Look, stay away from mum. She's in one of her moods or something like that." Do you know what I mean? So I think the biggest difference for me, I noticed the change in Amanda when she was coming home from work. And she was office manager, and she built all these CRM databases, and she didn't know how to work them. And I'm like, "But you built them." She says, "I know, but I don't remember how to work it." And just things like that. She started to forget who she was and what she was doing, and phoning up looking for her glasses or her phone. And I'm like, she ends up with glasses on her head, and she's sitting on her phone because it's in her back pocket, and just silly things like that. Do you know what I mean? Just forgetfulness, and you start to pick up on these things. But again, it's not until you start educating yourself that you go, "Oh, well, that's maybe this." You just you put it down to other things.
And from the guys that you've spoken to, yeah, how do they react when you start to bring up the conversation? Because it's one of the things for a woman is like, how do you start that conversation that says, I think this is going on, but have you noticed this? Yeah.
So obviously, sitting in a circle, we're sharing at Andy's Man Club, and like I said, I was getting a lot of nodding heads. And then the beauty of what we do is we break in the middle. So after we get everything off our chest, we go for a break. And that's where the peer support comes in. So guys come up and start talking to you because they've heard your share, or vice versa. You go and speak to someone because you can relate to that guy, what you just said. And that's where the conversations come. So by me just talking about it, it breaks down those barriers, and it's a wee bit easier for guys to come and talk. And we've done a couple of things. So we've done like an online awareness session, where I think we had about 20 or 30 facilitators online. Adele came on and gave a menopause awareness session, and there was a lot of guys took a lot out of that, and makes some more understanding as well, doesn't it? So it's conversations can be difficult, but sometimes you just got to push it. You know what I mean? I've heard stories that guys have bought books and just flung them into the living room and like, read this and we'll talk about it after. And it's like, I wouldn't have done that because I'd have got the book back at me. So I mean, she would have launched it off my head. So I
Yeah,
think
but
it's easy.
when you say that kind of in terms of throwing the book in the room, it's like, well, actually, still that's a million miles away from ignoring it and hoping it will go away, or reading something else into it and have the relationship deteriorate because you care enough to start the conversation or say
Well,
things need
you
to
obviously
shift.
do because you've gone out and bought the book, eh? You've done a wee bit of research, thought, right, well, I'm going to buy a life. Do you know what
To
I mean?
be
So that's a
fair,
massive step.
as well, I mean, the courage to throw the book in the room is one thing, but the courage to be in the menopause section of a bookshop, that's as bad
Yeah.
as Father Ted and the lingerie scene, I imagine. It's like, oh my goodness me.
Yeah. It's like anything, isn't it? You've got to do it. Do you know what I mean? You've got to do it if you want to keep that relationship going. In my heart, anyway, it's something that I had to do for me, so I could
Yeah.
understand what Amanda was going through, and it's only now she's accepting that I'm doing this. She's coming around. It's just one-on-one we talk about it. But like when other people talk about it, she just cringes. But now she's starting to come around to the fact that I'm out here talking about this, and I've done a few podcasts already on menopause, and planning to do some more as well because I think it's important.
Yeah, and you mentioned before about the range of the range of therapies, approaches that you're taking right now to manage your symptoms. And yeah, actually, we talk a lot about stress reduction. We talk a lot about, to help mitigate the impact. We talk about nutrition and exercise, and that's a family issue. That's not one woman on her own. It's a
No.
family thing.
And I think the good thing about that is, and obviously I take loads of different things for my long COVID. So like I ended up with fatigue and brain fog,
Mm.
which have a similarity to menopause symptoms as well. So I take things like lion's mane and shilajit, ashwagandha, magnesium, which is great for my sleep, but it's also good for my bones and stuff like that. So vitamin D, because in the UK, especially in Scotland, we don't get enough sunshine. So everyone should be taking vitamin D. It's just something that we don't get enough of. So the hardest bit is getting her into the habit of doing that. And it's like anything, you've got to just keep adding them in day by day and stacking them up. So it becomes normal. So I have my nootropics in my coffee. I put powder in my coffee and make my own drink with loads of different turmeric and ginger and all these different things in it, because I've heard somewhere in a podcast that this is good for this and that's good for that. And it just like, try it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Just see, go out, research it, go on the websites, read books. It'll tell you different things that work for different people. And it's the same way, relate it back to just mental health in general. Talking for me has become a massive part of my therapy and my recovery
yeah,
from mental illness. And I put lots in my toolbox. So I do cold water therapy, I meditate, I exercise, I drink water, I eat better, all these things that I've learned off other people. And it's just about picking up wee bits and tips here, there, and everywhere. And just listen to the podcast today, someone might go, I'm going to try that. Do you know what I mean? And just
yeah,
put it in, and it's creating that habit that you're doing
yeah.
it every day.
And some things work, some things don't.
That's
Yeah,
it.
there's
Trial and
always
error,
new.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's what fits with you, your lifestyle, your body, yeah, your approach, all of those
Mm.
bits. Now I want to just ask you a slightly different question, which is around the stigma, and from the work that you guys have done here in really challenging stigma head on. There's still, even though menopause is talked about quite widely, Davina's done a brilliant job of bringing that to the forefront. There still feels like there's a stigma around menopause, and it's attached to aging as well. You're kind of
Yeah.
like, oh no, 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 it's not me, because I'm not old enough, or there's all of that too that you put it off in your head. So from the work that you're doing with Annie's Man Club, what have you learnt works well in challenging stigmas?
I think consistency. Do you know what I mean? It's like creating habits. The more you talk about something, the easier it becomes. It normalizes your conversation. So, like you said at the start, we've talked about suicide a few times. It
Mm,
becomes normal to use words like that. It becomes normal to use words like menopause. And I think the biggest stigma around menopause is that it's for old women.
mm,
And try to challenge that and normalize that conversation, I think, is a big one, because obviously Adele that I speak to, she was 36. She knows a lassie at 18 that's going through menopause, and there's no age range now. It's just absolutely anyone and everyone that's born a woman can go through menopause, and everyone's different. So I think it's just normalising the conversation. Just keep talking about it. And I
mm.
remember it goes back to Lucas, and he'll hate me for this, because I remember the first time I met Adele was actually in a well-known coffee shop with a star on it in Dunfermline. She's sitting talking quite loudly, talking about some of the symptoms that she was suffering, and including vaginal dryness. So the first time I'm sitting, I'm like going, right, okay, well, she's bought me a coffee, so I'll let her talk about it. Do you know what I mean? But the more you talk about it, and the more you hear
Yeah,
about it, you get used to it, because it
yeah,
can be awkward. Do you know what I mean? And I remember the first meeting we had online about doing stuff with Andy's Man Club and Adele around menopause. Lucas was on it, and she was just talking the way that she always does. And he's sitting there, he's a young lad, he's 24, 25, and he was like a rabbit in the headlights. He was just like, don't want to be here. And you could see it. And I was like, I said, I'm really sorry, Lucas. I should have warned you what the conversation was going to be like. It's like, no, it's all right. It's just because I haven't heard it before.
yeah.
So, needless to say, he wasn't on the next meeting. Um, and Tanya from the office came on. So I still slag him off about that, because I think it's important to, as much as he felt awkward about it, he's still happy to talk about it. And he's
Yeah,
clearly in the conversation with you at the,
yeah.
the day
Oh,
that
definitely. And then
so
you think about kind of some of the other campaigns that are around at the moment, and Newman, for example. And going back to kind of men's and women's issues, Newman have done a fantastic job around erectile dysfunction. That you can just,
which again, none of us as men, we would never do. I'm not going to sit in my pub and tell my pal all about that. Do you know what I mean? Did you see the post in the toilets? I'm not telling him about that. Because there's nothing wrong with me, big man. I'm fine. Because there's loads of stigmas out there. So I mean,
and we've all got bodies. We've all got bodies that do stuff, and they do weird stuff. They do
don't always work, do they? They don't always work. So, but there's always ways to do it. And I'm a great believer. Obviously, I go to the doctors when I need to go to the doctors, but I've managed to come off everything that I need to take medically. It's something I'm quite happy with, and I use supplements now, so I try and find a natural remedy, and that's where some of these, like Shilajit, lion's mane, and all these things, they've got so many benefits. It's not just about cognitive function. There's loads of different things that these things can help you with.
Definitely. So, for any of our listeners today, kind of what advice would you give to them about, talking with their partner, or working with their partner, or working through this with their partner?
Oh, just do what I did. I mean, have a listen to some podcasts that are out there. Just it's so easy to access a podcast now. Listen to some of the things that they're talking about, and if you do relate to that, then she's your partner, or she's in your life for a reason. Do you know what I mean? We've probably had harder conversations and talking about menopause. And if you've got to do it like me and on the phone when you're 300-400 miles away, then that's what it takes. Just have to start that conversation. Like anything, do you know what I mean? Like anything in life, whether it's mental health, menopause, addiction, if the more we talk about these things, the easier it becomes. So, what's the worst that's going to happen?
And it's got to be better than suffering in silence and kind of just
you don't
dodging
want to just sit there and just be miserable all the time, and just don't want to say anything in case you say the wrong thing. So just start a conversation, even just leaving a book on the side of the kitchen or something, just going, oh, what about this? Can we have a read of this together and chat about it? Because I think it's affecting us.
Brilliant. And for many of the women that are here, they are UK based, and if they want to suggest their partner or somebody they love, somebody they work with about Andy's Man Club, how can they encourage people to find out more?
Probably the easiest way, and we talk about it all the time when we do presentations, that is we're all over social media. Do you know what I mean? So like and share our stuff that's on social media, and even if it's just a post on a Sunday, Monday, advertising a Monday meeting, share that, because you never know who's going to see it in your timeline. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we're even on TikTok now for the young team, so we're getting trendy. Or just get in touch. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think my man could benefit this. We'll send you a flyer, leave the flyer sitting in the fridge, or tell them about it. Just like, I heard this guy talking about Andy's Man Club the other day. You should check it out. Word of mouth's a massive thing. Like anything. Do you know what I mean? If we can tell people about it, then you never know where it could lead to. So
well, it's definitely good. It's definitely good to talk for anybody, and
100%.
it's been great hearing your story. Amanda probably gets sick of
she'll be
about
like,
all the time.
what have you been talking about today? I was like, I've done another podcast on menopause. She'll be like, oh, here we go. So she's been warned. She's been warned.
Well, you've been very discreet, so
it's one of these things that I don't get awkward talking about it now, whereas I did before. So that's obviously a good thing, that we can sit here and have an open conversation about anything. And I can do that with my girls, and you know what? And it's I better stick in my wee sister at the same time, because my wee sister's going through perimenopause as well, and it's a conversation I never thought I'd have with my wee sister. But some of it, I'm like, I don't need to know that, but go and speak to Amanda, because I've been talking to her. I'd rather talk to Amanda about it than my sister. So, but I think that's good to be able to have that conversation with your loved ones, no matter whether it's your wife, your sister, your mum, your daughter.
And
because it's important.
Yes, it's really, that comes across really strongly, and with the various men in my life, I know how they care deeply. They care deeply for the women that are in their lives, and they want to help them in any way that they can. And kind of just that, knowing that you're there and in their corner, it must mean so much.
Because they've got my back, so I've got to have their back in it. So
for sure.
It's teamwork.
I hear that makes the dream work, you know.
It does. It does. Allegedly.
So Alex, we're going to have all of your details on the show notes, and so, you know, do follow these guys. Their organization is absolutely phenomenal, and the comfort that you can see from Alex around confronting stigma and just having conversations and helping each other learn, because we learn as much from others. I mean, I've learned today that menopause only
Today,
lasts
yeah,
one
there you
day,
go.
and I'm like through it. It's like,
Aye.
what? I haven't got anything else to fear. You know, but it really does help us each to grow. So you take care. If you want to share this episode with your loved one or your partner, please do. They may need to hear it. If not, just share with anyone you like, and give us your likes. We do like to see them. So for now, thank you, Alex. You take
Oh,
care.
thank you. Thank you.
And
Enjoyed it.
yeah, we'll see you soon.